Hello, it's been mentioned to me that having a voiceover might make these videos a bit better. First, I'm going to trace out the size of my trackpad. I'm going to bump it over until I like the offset on one side of it, and then I'll measure that offset and apply it to the other side. Right now I'm using a marking knife because it's the first thing I find, but you can use whatever you have. It does not need to be as precise as you normally would be with a marking knife. Now that we have the top laid out, I'm going to measure the front and back of my trackpad. This board wasn't square on the edges, so I'm going to fix that real quick. Now, our edge is a bit easier to mark on. Let's transfer the measurements from the trackpad. With everything laid out, we can cut our board down to rough dimension. I'm using a pull saw, but you could use whatever saw you have. A miter saw would definitely make this fast and accurate, but I figured I'd use hand tools for everything so that if you were following along, you wouldn't hit this point and go, well crap, I don't have a miter saw. This cut is about as straight as I am, so we're gonna have to fix it. If you don't have a hand plane, you could use sandpaper or just cut this correctly. Now we're gonna circle back to our layout lines and create a wall to stay inside while cutting out our material. You might think you don't need this, but it is surprising how much just marking this out and then cutting it down to depth can do to stop the whole thing from just going to pieces. I'm going to cut down to the shorter of the two measurements we got, and then on the other side, I'm going to cut down all the way to the deeper of the two measurements. I wind up trying a bunch of different saws to make this process faster. None of them track particularly better than the others, and you can use whatever you have, just be patient. Unfortunately, if you don't have chisels, the only thing I can think of as far as hocking this material out would be a Dremel if you wanted to take forever doing it, or a router, but I hesitate to recommend running out and grabbing a router. They can be dangerous. On the plus side, even cheap chisels are serviceable for this kind of thing, so run out to Harbor Freight, grab yourself a set of chisels, and watch some sharpening videos. Finding a good way to hold this kind of thing can be a pain. Fortunately, I find out a way to do it. If you don't have a way to hold it, it can be difficult. There are a bunch of videos on planing stops that would work just as well for this process. We are effectively hand planing, but with chisels, but not really, but kinda. The shallower and slower you go with cutting out this material is going to make it a lot less likely you have blowout on the sides. I wound up blowing out a little section. I'm gonna wind up just turning that into a recess where you can lift your trackpad out with enough sanding. Anything was on purpose. super goofy that I have a finger sander, but I don't have a detail sander. If you don't have either of those, you could just spend way more time with chisel, get it all cleaned up. You probably did it better than I did. So the bottom of your board isn't all chewed up, but sandpaper, a chisel, a detail sander's a pretty reasonable investment. They're like 20 bucks. I will say I've tried the detail sander things for my multi-tool a bunch of different times from a bunch of different companies, and they all seem to be kind of awful. I would just get like a dedicated detail sander. So finishing is where you can really make this project as nice as you want to. You could spend ages and ages making sure everything's sanded to 220 and everything's smooth and looks nice, and I'd recommend doing that, but I'm impatient, so I just knocked this out real quick. I'll wind up coming back and cleaning everything up further, but for right now I just wanted a working proof of concept. This is also where you can pick an angle for your trackpad. The way I cut my channels has it so the trackpad just lays flat in the groove. You could go back and cut your angle differently through the middle of the board, or what I recommend doing is having it lay flat like mine does, and then you can plane or sand or chisel the angle into your base, and that way it's a little bit easier to adjust and you don't risk messing things up as you do it. You can always take off too much material, but again, if you take off too much material, sand your bottom nice and smooth, and then add some feet to it, and whoa, it was on purpose. I got this piece of bloodwood at a local hardwood dealer for about $11, which is a lot less expensive than the Grovemade stuff. Bloodwood has natural oils that can make staining it pretty difficult. If you are not using bloodwood, or I think it's papinga is the other common wood that has these oils, you'll be fine. You don't need to wipe everything down with acetone. And if you are using bloodwood or papinga, then you're probably familiar with it. If you're not, it can be a pain to stain. You want to wipe it down with alcohol or mineral spirits, or in my case, acetone. And then I go back over it, boiled linseed oil, make everything pop and look nice. Really, this is the kind of project you would want to do with like construction lumber or pine, something soft. Make cutting the channel quite a bit easier, make sanding everything down quite a bit easier, and at the end of it, it wouldn't be meaningfully different. I just had this fun piece of wood, so I used it. My channel didn't wind up being perfect, and my trackpad wobbles a bit, which is unfortunate. Generally, you want to undershoot rather than overshoot, but in this case, we're going to sort it out by putting a piece of leather in the bottom of our board so that the trackpad has something that will stop it from moving left and right. If you wind up in the same situation, you can also use double-sided tape or some other fabric. And there's our final product. If I had to do it again, I think I'd just take more time on each step. I can get pretty impatient with things, go a bit slower with chiseling things out, spend a bit more time finishing, but all in all, I'm pretty happy with it. Thank you for watching. I hope whatever you have going on in life works out well for you. Let me know what you think of the voiceover, and hopefully I'll see you again next time.